That morning, everything was unusually ordinary. In a small bank in one of New Jersey's quiet towns, everything was as usual. Bank employees were busy with files, and customers were carrying out their transactions in a routine manner. The weather was slightly cold, the sky was gray, but no one inside the bank noticed anything different. The whole town was unaware of what was unfolding inside the bank, continuing with their usual day. At 10:17 in the morning, the door of the bank opened and a man walked in. He didn't attract attention with his dark coat or his weary steps, but the deep emptiness in his face told a different story. This man was Hollywood's legendary star, Keanu Reeves. No one noticed him. No one looked at him. But that moment wasn't a movie set. Keanu Reeves was here for the most personal moment of his life. He wasn't an actor, he was just a man in that moment. His eyes slowly scanned the room. The employees and a few customers were still going about their business. Keanu didn't look directly at anyone, but eyes kept drifting toward him. He had aged. The deep hollows under his eyes revealed the weight of his life, the toll of the years. But his hair was still black, still alive. The deep black hair, contrasting with his gray coat, concealed the changes that time had brought him. He walked quietly towards the bank counter. He was carrying an old, worn leather bag. The leather had faded, its color almost gone. But that bag carried memories, pieces of Keanu's past, and some things he hadn't shared with anyone. The security guard, seeing him, approached him hesitantly. The man had an air about him that felt different, but no one could quite figure it out. "Can I help you, sir?" the security guard asked, slightly bowing his head. Keanu took a deep breath and nodded slowly, heading towards the counter. His steps were so silent that only the echoes of them were heard. Everyone around him felt uneasy, but no one knew why. All the eyes in the bank shifted toward him. Keanu, in the midst of the silence, let his words break through. "This bank, it belongs to me." The weight of his words changed the atmosphere in the room immediately. A few customers looked up and began to stare, others whispered to each other, and some turned their gaze toward the bank clerk and the manager. Confusion and uncertainty filled the room. Was this man really saying this? Someone laughed, then a few others followed with nervous chuckles. "Excuse me?" the clerk asked, still in disbelief. Keanu calmly opened his bag. He pulled out yellow documents, photos, and legal papers from the 1970s. He placed them on the counter. These were the documents signed by Keanu's grandfather, one of the original founders of the bank. No one in the bank knew that Keanu Reeves was, in fact, connected to this bank through his family. The bank manager, still puzzled, took the documents and began examining them. No one in the room had any idea about Keanu's family connection to the bank. But as the manager carefully looked over the documents, something started to click. In one of the photos was a young man, Keanu's grandfather. It was a photo taken in 1946, before the bank was even established, when Keanu's grandfather was laying the first stones of the bank in this very town. The documents were real, and the history began to come alive in front of everyone's eyes. Keanu began to tell his story. His voice was calm, but each word carried a deep weight. He spoke about the pain of being abandoned by his father, the struggles of his mother trying to raise him alone, the loneliness they experienced when they moved to Canada. He even talked about how they once lived in a small apartment behind this very bank before he ever got into acting. Every morning, his mother would hand him a $1 bill and tell him, "One day, you'll return to this bank not just to deposit money, but for a purpose." Years had passed. After the fame, the fortune, the success from the Matrix sets, but in the corner of his heart, there was always this town and this bank. Keanu knew that no matter how much wealth or fame he had gained, part of him would always be tied to this place. After his mother's death, he had found these documents, and following the traces of his past, he decided to return to this town. Some still thought he was crazy. But when the manager took the documents and sent them to the authorities, the truth emerged. Keanu Reeves's family was one of the original shareholders of the bank. Over the years, his family's inheritance had been quietly forgotten and even covered up. When Keanu walked out of the bank that day, he didn't pocket a single cent. It wasn't about the money for him. It was like closing the final page of an unfinished book. The next day, a big banner was hung on the bank's door. This bank was once the dream of a man. Now that dream has been completed with Keanu Reeves's reality. And that day, the townspeople learned that Keanu Reeves wasn't just an actor. He was a man who proudly carried the legacy of his past. Perhaps the greatest fortune is the courage to face one's own past.